Good evening and welcome to the Upset Podcast. Tonight we are talking about in but out, the dilemma of being distinct. Coming up next. All right, once again, welcome back to the Upset Podcast, Season 5. Every time I see that, I'm like, wow, Season 5. And we're excited to be with you today. And when I say we're,
Mhm.
who are we talking about exactly?
Uh,
Hey,
the
hey.
holy triumvirate.
We got a whole tea up here today. But good to see you guys. How was the week for you?
Not
It
bad. I
was
mean,
wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay.
really. I wasn't willing to go quite that far, but not bad.
Not bad, a
You
lot to
know.
be thankful for.
The general conference session is still going on. What do we have to share with the people about the general conference session, Tasha?
Well, well, one highlight that happened earlier this week that a lot of people in our community were talking about was the appointment of Pastor Crystal Ward. She's a pastor at the Spencerville Church. She made history as being the first female pastor to be voted as the role of associate ministerial secretary. So a lot of people were very happy about that, feeling like maybe we're making strides in the right direction. So we definitely want to congratulate her. I did have an opportunity of meeting her once at one of the called conferences. I think Pat introduced me to her, and lovely person. I don't know her ministry that well, but she definitely has a lot of support, and it seems like this is definitely going to be a big step. I mean, and then of course, I did see some commentary about, is this like a token thing just to like, and this is not to diminish her in any way. It's more having to do, we don't want to officially ordain women. But
Is she ordained?
she's in Spencerville, which is what, Potomac?
Yeah. I mean, it's within our union, so they
Yes.
have the power to it. She is ordained?
I want to assume she is.
Now, does this new title take her out of the parish and put her in an office, or is she still?
She'll still be there.
Okay.
I did see a video where she was addressing her church and saying she was very grateful for the appointment, and how she was surprised. I guess the lead pastor at the church had called her, kind of to come backstage, and she thought it was church business. And then that's when he, I guess, shared with her that her name was being nominated, and so she reassured the Spencerville Church that she still will be there. That this is just another role that God has given her. So
Okay.
yeah, so that was great. That was a highlight. I know throughout the week, several people were asking, when is Snell going to take the stage? I guess in some cases people weren't sure if he was, or they were just kind of putting it out there. But he did on Thursday evening take the stage for 15 minutes. And that was very well received by others.
Yeah, he used all his 15 minutes.
Yeah, like left no crumbs, they say. Or he left.
Give me an idea of I will readily admit I'm not much of a GC attendee, but what was it that what called him to the forefront? Was it the breath of life position or the Oakwood position? And how did he use those 15 minutes?
Well, I definitely think I personally haven't heard the message yet, but I definitely know, to answer portion of the question, I'll let GP talk about the message. I definitely think Breath of Life, it's a TV broadcast, well known, I definitely think that definitely catapulted him to kind of being on the list.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Even in the exhibit hall, Breath of Life has a pretty distinct presence, I felt like. And so I definitely think that had a lot to do with him being selected. I mean, aside from the fact that he's a phenomenal speaker. But GP, tell us a little bit about the message. I know you heard it.
Yeah, and on the hinge of that comment, Tasha, I find it ironic that we're hosting GC in St. Louis, Missouri, urban territory,
yep.
And they have chosen John Bradshaw from It Is Written to speak every single night or every day, and they give Deblier Snell, a sliver of 15 minutes. But that's another conversation. So visibility, equality, access. Yeah, we're in the exhibit hall, but do they give our people enough burn on the stage? But anyways, his message was entitled, "Can I Get a Witness?" He was talking about having a testimony and being a witness for Jesus. And at the end, he had a little shout, that was appropriate. And I wasn't in the audience. I didn't know what was going on, but it was a wonderful opportunity to share a message. It was authentic. It was empowering. It was exciting, and it was received. And I believe if there was a Hammond organ on stage, it would have been roaring and pushing the preacher even more. But he used his time well and delivered, and he represented us well.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I'm going to take a listen to it. Well, I admire and appreciate the gentleman's talent. And even more than that, his humility and his spirit just deeply impressed me. But one of the things I had left some comments online because I've been hearing people talk about what the leaders of the General Conference, how they had not been sensitive to Black needs, or how they had not been aware, or that they were not caring about the African American or the Black culture, because of course the non-white church is a lot bigger than the African American church, and I left some comments saying, first of all, you don't want to judge them. You don't want to say they don't care about us, they don't like us, and all that. But the bigger question is this: only unempowered people complain about what other folks ain't letting them do and ain't doing for them. We don't, if you don't like what they're doing or not doing, don't get mad. Don't assail them. Don't presume that they are being hostile towards you. Do what you need to do for yourself, which is what we've done. I mean, we had the service there last Sabbath that was separate. We had the concert that was separate. The Black Adventist segment of the church decided they wanted their own retirement fund. They did it. And don't complain, make them hear you by your action. And it's time to stop complaining about what others are not doing for you or what others are not allowing you to do, and just go ahead and do it.
I agree with that. I feel like that's where I am in this thing. There was a time when you're ready to push back, fight, and you're like, what am I doing all this for? It's not worth the energy. Let's create the space we want to see. Yeah.
I mean, the AME church exists because the Methodist Church seemed to not have the sensitivity needed to help grow the African American presence in the Methodist Church, and the AME church now exists for that reason. I mean, Barnabas separated from Paul because they couldn't see eye to eye on some things, and rather than fight, they decided to bifurcate and pursue the goals of ministry in two separate directions. I can see Justin Pierre as the first president of the African American Adventist Church.
No, you can have that, Tally.
I wouldn't want to work for people dumb enough to elect me. That is not my position. I'm not an administrator. I don't like it. I've done it before, and I didn't like it when I did it.
Oh, you did? What didn't you like about it, Tally? I mean, not the.
I remember I was the executive director of the Commission on Human Relations for the city of Philadelphia. Historically, the Commission on Human Relations for the city of Philadelphia is the oldest such commission in the country, and it's somewhat venerable. And our job is to foster healthy relationships between diverse populations and to protect protected classes of people. And as the executive director, I had a staff of about 40, and a budget of about $6 million per year, a little more than that. And I hated people calling me boss. I mean, I remember at a meeting, I said, the next person who calls me boss is fired. And
that's what you hated the most, Allie? Just being called boss?
Not just what it represented, that somehow or another, I'm supposed to tell you what to do. I prefer what we're doing now, working with equals, where we each have I like working with people that don't perceive me to be their superior. Even as a pastor, I used to have challenges with that. I anticipate that people will consider me just to be another member, but as a pastor, I realize that's not so. So I have difficulty being the titular head of something.
I get it. I feel a little bit of that sometimes too. So I get you.
I mean, because you're our boss, Pasha.
Yeah, don't start. Boss definitely has a different connotation with women too.
El jefe.
But no. And I know we were talking earlier about in the news our dear president and his interaction with the president of Liberia. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. I had to, you know how you see the heading and you're like, no, let me listen for myself. And then you hear it and you're like, really? Like, how embarrassing. I was so embarrassed. I don't know when I'll stop being embarrassed and just accept that this is what's going to be for a while. But I just...
Yeah. For those who don't know, in a meeting with several African leaders, Donald Trump cloyingly and condescendingly, in conversation with the Liberian president, said, you speak such beautiful English. Were you educated? Where did you learn? And you know, because his language is clumsy, that sounded like an insult.
Exactly.
But he was complimenting the Liberian president on the president's facility with English, totally unaware of the fact that Liberia is a nation in Africa that was started by American Black expatriates, and that their language, their official language, is English.
Right.
And it's almost like he went to the zoo and saw and a gorilla met him at the door quoting Shakespearean sonnets, you know, and the president was, you know, being very condescending. Yeah.
Yeah. It almost was like, I thought you would be, you know, like it showed not only his ignorance, but just some of his like.
Yeah. Like, where's the bone in your nose? And how come you're not beating a drum, you know?
Right.
But I remember back in the 1980s, I was at lunch at the General Conference, and as a minister, and one of the white administrators there said, you know, you're so well spoken. And I looked at him and said, when is the last time you said that to a white person?
You did say that to him? Right on.
Oh yeah.
Uh-oh.
And he just kind of froze, because most times we are not aware of our prejudices.
Yep.
We're not aware of them. I mean, I remember hearing a Black woman say about another Black woman, she's pretty for a dark girl.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
And I said, what does that mean? And that's when she became aware of the fact that she was prejudiced against people with darker complexions, that she had imbibed a level of self-hatred. And Donald Trump, who, you know, just is not, you know, he isn't a very resonant human being, you know, thought he was complimenting somebody while he insulted him thoroughly.
Yes. In front of the whole world.
Oh,
my goodness. Anywho, but some of the commentary I'm telling you, I definitely got some laughs from the comments in those videos. I mean, if you want to get a good laugh, just any of the news platforms that publish that, read the comments. They are hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's funny, but it's not funny at the same
True.
time. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and dive into our topic, which I'm really excited about. In but out, the dilemma of being distinct. And Tally, go ahead and introduce this topic for us.
Well, thank you, boss. Well, you know, one of the things as Seventh-day Adventist folks, we are well aware of the fact that we consider ourselves to be, quote, the remnant church. And as such, many times we find ourselves perceiving ourselves to be outside of the circle of other activities going on. The old joke is told of people in heaven walking around seeing different groups and seeing a bunch of Adventists, and Jesus says, don't make any noise because they think they're the only ones here. And we wrestle with that issue. And our outsider status at times puts us behind the 8 ball a little bit. Let's do a little quiz real fast. Let me ask you a question. Do you recognize this face? Our 2 panelists there, do you recognize that individual?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. And the reason you recognize him is because of the pivotal role that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. played in society. I had the privilege of meeting him when I was a kid.
Wow.
Thank you for calling me old, Tasha. I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. I was just a kid, and he was in Philadelphia doing some ministry. Wow. But he was very deeply involved. How about this person? If I were to share with you this gentleman, do you recognize him?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Operation Push, and one of the first serious contenders for the presidency as a Black person. There are other individuals who are ministers in their own right who make real contributions to our scene and to political and social life, particularly for African Americans. Reverend Al Sharpton, Dedrick Blue, and Alan Martin, 2 ministers up in the Northeastern Conference, are having a meeting with him, to which many of us are invited. Al Sharpton his show used to precede mine on radio, and he's actually a very great preacher, and he is the national leader of the National Action Network. Here's another individual, a gentleman I respect highly. Do you recognize that image, either of you guys?
Reverend Barber.
Reverend William Barber, the leader of the Poor People's Campaign, Repairers of the Breach. It used to be the leader of Moral Mondays, and still is now, because that has gone national. These are 4 ministers that have done extraordinary work in the United States of America. And of course, 2 of them are still very active. Jesse Jackson is getting up in age. Here's another minister that I had the privilege to work with a few years ago. Now, people say, wait, he's not a minister. Yeah, he's a minister. And do we recognize him?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we do.
Okay, that's the minister, Louis Farrakhan. I remember one time they assumed that I was a member of the Fruit of Islam and had me to greet him at the door of his car. It was really funny, that one. But there are other individuals, Black individuals, who have had tremendous impact on social life in our community. Way back in the early 1900s, there was a gentleman who made a complete difference. Is that face recognizable to you?
No, not to me.
The NAACP would not be the NAACP without the laudable contribution of one W.E.B. Du Bois.
Oh, is that what he looks like?
That was what he looked like as a younger man, W.E.B. Du Bois. Here's another name, a face that some of you may recognize. I know a large number of our upsetters who are watching will recognize him. Do you recognize that one?
Yeah.
Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who started the Black Star Line and was in the vanguard. He was a bellwether of Black economic independence, reviled and persecuted by the United States of America to the point of exile and imprisonment. And that's because they could not accept the fact that he was leading people away. All of these individuals made huge contributions to American societal life, specifically and particularly to the Black church life in the United States of America. But here's the thing, even though they made these contributions and we all benefit from what they do, we would not work with them. When the Million Man March came off in 1995, we were told not to go. When Martin Luther King was leading the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, our ministers were told not to associate with them. To their credit, men like Earl Moore and Charles Dudley said, we're going to be there because that's where our people are. But we were told not to associate with these individuals because somehow or another, as the African American community of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in particular, but in general, all Adventists, we consider ourselves to be in, but also to be out. We are connected, but we're not really connected. And we wrestle with this issue of being different, being distinct, being separated, being other than. And we want to talk just a little bit about that in this brief presentation before we start our discussion about this dilemma of being distinct. Now, the first thing we want to take note of, it's not because we just decided that being distinct is fun. A lot of it is based on the fact that we read a certain way. Let me share a couple of scriptures with you, and you tell me, what do you think these scriptures lead you to perceive about yourself? Revelation chapter 18:4. Read that for us, Tasha, if you'd be so kind.
Sure. I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people."
All right. Okay. How about this passage that comes from the book of Leviticus, GP, if you can share that one with us?
You shall be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have separated you from the peoples, that you should be mine.
James 4:4. Once again, Tasha, if you would share with us.
Friendship with the world is enmity with God. Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God.
Last but not least, GP, from 2 Corinthians chapter 6.
Therefore, come out from among them and be separate.
All right. Now, first of all, this proves to those who have said otherwise that the podcasters are illiterate and can't read. This proves that that's not true. That's first. But secondly, there's something else that we notice about all of these passages, and that is that all of them focus on a certain mindset. Come out of her, separated. Don't be friends with people in the rest of the world. Come out, be separate. When you read these passages of scripture and you digest the fact that your identity is found in being different, it causes you to walk away from the stream of activity in the world around you. And this is at the very foundation of Adventist behavior and Adventist mindset. I am distinct. I am separated. You'll hear certain statements like they're in the world, or you'll call other churches worldly churches, or other ministers Sunday people. Like they don't have a definition beside the fact of something that you can use to make them different. And because of this, because we have this feeling that we are demanded to be separate and distinct and different, it causes us to move away from other people. And there are activities and organizations and institutions that are very meaningful in our society that we are absolutely unfamiliar with. I'm listing just four. I picked them out as random, as organizations and institutions that have been working, most of them for almost 100 years in our society. But I will almost guarantee you that most of our members and many of our ministers do not know about them. The NAACP, the Urban League, Faith in Action, the United Negro College Fund. All of these are institutions that everybody listening to me has probably benefited from. For example, the NAACP, founded in 1909, has the mission of creating educational, social, and economic equality in our society. And they've been doing it for over 100 years, not simply for Black people, but for all people. And they are very much involved, and they were started by individuals in churches. The Urban League is very similar, started in 1910. And initially, they were designed to help Southern Blacks who were moving into the urban North to make the adjustment to urban life. But they've gone on now to have a larger, more expansive involvement in our community. Faith in Action has been around a lot longer than most people think, since the 1970s. I happen to be really good friends with the president of Faith in Action, and they initially started by recognizing that the church needed to organize better to express itself on matters of injustice like racism and economic oppression. And they are still carrying on strongly. They are organized. They are churches that are organized to work together on points of common concern. The United Negro College Fund, most of us would not have finished school if it were not for their work. It was started in 1944, trying to help increase the number of African-American students matriculating in colleges. And even though they are the United Negro College Fund, and it's still good to be a Negro every once in a while,
I'll take it.
They help over 65,000 students in 900 universities and colleges, most of which are not HBCUs, but they assist them in getting funding and they advocate for funding. Now, if I were to ask you who the leaders of these organizations are, I bet you wouldn't know because we don't work with them. So we don't know that the head of the NAACP is a guy by the name of Derek Johnson.
Mm.
We are totally unfamiliar with the fact that the head of the Urban League is the former mayor of New Orleans, Mark Morial. And we have never met, nor do we even think about Faith in Action and its leader, Bishop Dwayne Royster, who's right here in the Allegheny East Conference. Derek Johnson's right there, based in Baltimore. And the United Negro College Fund is led by former elected official, Mr. Michael Lomax. Now, these groups do extraordinary work that affect the majority of our members. And they are good people doing good things. But to most of us in the remnant church, because of our sense of being separated, they might as well not exist at all because we don't work with them. So I'll ask you, where do we find the counsel? Here's the question: where do we find the counsel on how to work with beneficial government and secular agencies, particularly for the church, which would mean New Testament counsel? Where would we find those passages of Scripture? Well, while we hear the gears turning in the minds of brilliant panelists, let me save you some time. There are none. There's nothing in the New Testament that suggests that we work with different agencies of government. Nothing. Or that we work with other agencies outside of the church. There is nothing in the New Testament that ever shows any of the apostles or anybody working with an entity or an agency outside of the church. In fact, there are some things that suggest that they avoided those levels of connections. To suggest it, the closest you ever get are passages of Scripture, sort of like the one we find in Romans 13, where it says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities. There's no authority except it comes from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. And if you resist those authorities, you're actually resisting what God has appointed, which suggests that maybe we do need to figure out how to address this. So let's get to the questions that will drive our discussion today. We are recognizing that we're in the world, but not of the world. So the big questions are these, and that is, does God want us to work with non-church, non-SDA groups? If we're in it, not of it, does God want us to associate it? I hear somebody saying, no, come out from among them and be separate. I hear people saying that. Is that what God really wants us to do, to be so separate that we don't work with other groups? And if God does not mind us working with other groups, what metrics will we use to determine which groups we can work with? For example, Planned Parenthood. There's some people say, I can't work with them. Why? Because they sponsor abortion. Okay, maybe so. But your church invests in corporations that are racist. I'll leave that one right there where I felt.
Black Lives Matter.
Exactly. Black Lives Matter. The people. Can we work with groups like that? And if we decide, yes, God wants us to work with some groups and not other groups, then we have to ask ourselves, can we work with groups only in matters of spiritual compatibility, where it's religious issues that we agree with? Or can we work with them on matters of economic issues or environmental issues? For example, the city of Chester, for years, has been under the auspices of corporations that rule that city pretty much, that have been poisoning the air and the water. And the residents of Chester, mostly Black residents, have had greater degrees of illnesses associated with the toxicity that is a part of the air and the water there. But it's not spiritual, it's environmental. Should we be concerned about that? I will be the first to tell you that I cannot answer these questions, and I don't know all of the pathways we need to take. But I am in the presence of individuals of superlative wisdom and preternatural insight who can answer these questions with skill and aplomb. And to Justin Pierre and to Tasha Hewitt, I would say, what say you one? What say you all when we think about how we cooperate with other groups and organizations?
Great. I mean, first of all, thank you for laying that out. Thank you for introducing me to the leaders of some of those organizations, one that I'm familiar with, but as you said, I do not readily know the names of the leaders. So thank you for the education. And I definitely think this is a topic that is important for us to bring attention to, because I know early on, coming into the church or being in the church, anytime you mentioned collaboration with any organization, religious or not, that was not Adventist, it was immediately frowned upon. It was just like a deal breaker. I mean, it's like, even if we're trying to help the same cause, if they're not Adventist, and there was this assumption that you will become tainted by working in collaboration, or you would confuse people to think that you believe the same thing that organization believed. And so to maintain the purity of who we were as Adventists, it was best not to associate, because people would not know how to distinguish us from them. And that to me became the main thing. So even though working together would have helped thousands and provided so much, because we could not remain distinct, we would opt out. And I definitely think, and the interesting thing about that is we wouldn't do it as a church, but we as individuals would work for organizations. Like some of us literally work for community agencies where we partner to do things for the community. But it was like, I can only do this through my job. But when it comes to the church, no. There can't be any. So we didn't even recognize the hypocrisy in some of the things we were saying. How are we able to do it because it's our job? But we're not able to do it as our job as Christians to bring good to the community. So I definitely think that was a warped way of thinking. At the same time, I understand not wanting to blur the lines if you work with an organization who believes something that's fundamentally against what we stand for. I understand not wanting to be perceived in that manner. I mean, we have companies now who work with celebrities that if they're, embroiled in something negative, they immediately cut ties with them because they don't want their brand associated with the behavior of this particular player or celebrity. So we see that happening corporately. But go ahead. Yeah. But I think now we need to shift, especially when it comes to things that are happening in our communities, to being able to say, we align on this cause. So if it's about, housing in the community and there's an organization that is working to do that, we can partner with them on this housing initiative and be very intentional about how we can help with the housing initiative without being assumed that everything that this organization is doing, we stand behind. I think there's a way to separate causes from an organizational framework, if that makes sense.
I agree with you, but what it does not address is the original position. And this is something that Adventism is not very good at. We for example, when we decided that a lot of stuff that Uriah Smith said in the book Daniel and Revelation doesn't hold water theologically, the book just disappeared. We never said, you know what, we were wrong about that. And so the question I would ask now is, did we have a theological leg to stand on from the beginning when we said that we are so separate and so distinct that we should not allow ourselves to be identified? I mean, an Adventist church will be at an intersection where there's an Adventist church on this corner, First Methodist on the other corner, Second Baptist on the other corner, Third Presbyterian on the other corner, and they will have nothing to do with either of them.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that our identity is found in being distinct from other people. Did we have a theological leg to stand on from the beginning?
No. We were wrong.
Hold on for a second. Yeah, I'm telling you, Trevor. Yeah, Mr. President, both of them. Yeah,
and he would agree. He would agree. because I think we were misguided. I think the intent may have been pure, but it was not reflective of our Christianity. I think we lost sight of because.
So let me drill down on this. So are we
Mhm.
saying then that the Adventist church is not distinct from the Christian community to the point of needing to declare itself different?
I don't think we need to declare ourselves different. I just think we need to be faithful to our assignment to preaching the gospel and, just being Christians, because our identity is Christianity, right? We're not,
Yeah.
Anything other than Christians who just have a unique message that we're sharing, but our identity is still Christianity.
Right.
Go ahead.
I think we wore the banner of distinct more than we wore the banner of Christian. So it's like we need to be set up. You need to see that we're different from you by our actions. And so because we're different, we can't associate with you. But we still want you to come be a part of us, but we can't meet you over there.
Right. I remember the day when Adventists were told not to go into other churches.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they can come in now, but we shouldn't go into theirs. So, I guess then are the churches beginning to realize that we should cooperatively venture and work with other organizations for the mutual benefit, not only of our own members, but for the community at large?
Yes. I think many are. I think there's still some who are stuck. They're stuck in that mentality of, if it's not Adventist, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But I definitely think churches who are moving forward, forging these relationships and actually having big impact, I think that's helping turn the tide for others who say, oh, wow, I didn't realize. Look how much we were able to do working with this organization that we weren't able to do before. Look at the opportunities we now have to minister that we didn't have before, because now we are interacting with people we never gave ourselves access to before. But also shifting our mindset of being better than. I mean, let's be honest, like we kind of walked around like we got the truth. We just wait for you guys to catch up. We had that mentality. But when you're like Jesus ministry, ministering to people, being with the people, you see them as your brothers and sisters. It's no more, I'm here, you're down there. It's how can I help you come along where you are in your journey? And that shift in our mentality will help us realize we can work with anyone. Well, but I think we need to also clarify that. Not anyone. And that's, I think, where the gray area is. Where do we draw
criteria? What metrics should we, and that was a part of the question, what metrics should we deploy to determine who we can work with and who we can't work with? How do we make those evaluations? And there was silence.
No, I can
what happened now.
I definitely think, and that's why I said, for me, separating in organizational structure from maybe a project in some cases. And I don't know if we're able to do that. But for instance, if an organization, regardless of what it is seeking to, but then too, you have to be careful too, because sometimes organizations use community activism to throw people off of their other negative. This is like balance out. And so you don't want to be caught up in a pond like, oh yes, we're throwing this charity bone out here just so people don't know that we are, mistreating our employees, or we're doing, other unlawful things. So I don't know what that rubric.
Obviously, but I hear the caution in your voice.
Yeah.
Is taking us back to where you say we're leaving.
Yeah.
I know it is tough, because I don't think you can just work with anybody. I don't.
Okay.
But at the same time,
but that comes back to the question.
Yeah.
What metrics do we deploy to determine who we can and who we cannot work with?
If it's a cause that Jesus would champion and they are for it, we should be for it as well and be willing to collaborate, as long as we're not compromising on those values.
So we can work with the Nation of Islam when it comes to feeding poor children
Of
in Black
course.
neighborhoods.
Of course.
And
Oh, now, GP just put some salamam on your legum there. Is that something that all of the Adventist ministers who are listening, do they agree with that?
Well,
and that's what I mean about that distinction between an activity and a full-on partnership. So if they're saying we're organizing to feed the hungry, and you're like, okay, why wouldn't I be a part of that? But if they're saying join us as we,
Tasha said we can do it as long as we put on a sociological condom. We have to protect ourselves.
no, I mean, I feel like just doing good, there should be no parameters to partnering with people to do good. Okay. I just think that how we form the partnership should be,
So you would be you would as the communications director, you could work side by side with the Catholic Church when it comes to clothing poor communities.
I could, because my focus is clothing the poor communities.
And we want to welcome everybody to Tasha's last year as
No, I really do. Like I feel like even as with Pathfinders, for instance, a lot of it is helping the young people find organizations that they can volunteer with, and a lot of times we're volunteering with different entities that don't necessarily, believe everything we believe, but they believe in feeding seniors who don't have access to food, and that's something we can support. So we can be a part of that.
Theologically, GP, you're a seminarian. This is where we need Keenan and Marlena. Our two doctoral members. How do we bring that to coincide with our belief that ultimately these people that we are, quote, working with, unquote, are going to turn around and chase us into the woods because we go to the church on the wrong day? Theologically, how do we, if we believe, or do we still believe, that these other churches that we might be partnering with, that they're the daughters of Babylon, and that at some point our job is to make them who we are, and if we don't, they're going to chase us into the woods and demand that we go to church on a different day? Do we still believe that? And if we do believe that, then how can we work with these groups that are going to chase us into the park?
There are some who believe that, and there's some who just hold the belief that we don't know exactly how that season of persecution will be carried out, or the details of what will happen, but we do know that we'll have a time of trouble. And if we're focused on occupying until Jesus returns, then our focus is how can we help make a difference? And we shouldn't operate in silos. And so are you operating out of fear or with faith? And so that's what it boils down to. I mean, you can be afraid all you want and isolate yourself, but you can make a bigger impact if you're collaborating with others. So sorry if I don't answer your theological question.
I'm with you. I mean, God has not given us a spirit of fear. So if we know we're operating in what God has commissioned us to do as Christians, living on this earth and helping others, and doing me fearing my life should not be my focus, or me fearing persecution should not prevent me from doing what I need to do to help my fellow man and live my Christian life. So if my whole thing is let me shield myself from persecution, then
all right. Now I want each of you to give me 3 outreach activities that a typical Adventist church would involve themselves in. Any 3. I mean, just off the top of your heads. Okay.
It's the classic.
All right.
Partnering with the food bank to provide free food during the week to those who are in need of food, to help address food insecurity. We do this one with pride and joy, and we stop there and never scale or never explore other opportunities.
Okay, so that's one. Food. My church was West Philadelphia Church is extraordinary, and so food giveaways where we get the food from some source,
and then come to us.
Yeah, and then they come to us. Okay, that's one. Food giveaway programs. Okay. What's
I
another
would
one,
I
Tasha?
would say clothing drives.
Clothing drives.
And,
Okay.
and I'm going to also mention health fairs, like community health
Yeah.
fairs. So we do a lot of bringing of
Stop
health.
smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's three. I want you to take note of the fact that typically, and those three are good examples, we get involved in outreach endeavors that allow us to become, that allow us to be paternalistic.
Yep.
You need this. We're giving it to you. There's no need to plan about it. You need it. So what choice do you have? If you're on fire and we got the only bucket of water, then you got to participate according to our dictates. How many times do you find our churches involved where they have to be equal partners in planning and cooperatively and strategically acting? In other words, this is not, not paternalistic here. We're working together to build something. For example, like building a housing development for people.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you hear about that amongst our churches?
Very rare.
I do know, like Habitat for Humanity. I do know that we have some. It's probably really individuals, because I know, like even Pine Forge Academy at one point had partnered with Habitat for Humanity. They were building homes and stuff, and restoring things. A lot of times,
that's a good one.
Yeah, it's I feel like we do some of that, but not on the scale that I think we could do it. Let's put it that way. It's
our churches are seldom a part of those $30 to $50 million deals and collaborations where we're collaborating with the city to meet a need.
Yeah.
Because we, as Adventists, we don't partner. We will provide a service for you,
right?
But we will not partner with you. And because of that, I mean, when the organizations that I shared with you, the NAACP, the United Negro College Fund, these are multi-million organizations that could assist us in doing better things that we try to do well, but we won't partner,
Well, I know with the NAACP, like there's a chapter in Pottstown, and so whenever we have camp meeting, it's like a regular spot now where the person, even this past camp meeting, the leader was able to come and share, welcome everyone, share a little bit. And what I liked about this particular gentleman, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, is that even after he came, he reached back out to us, for a photo. He wanted to highlight his partnership with us. And I was like, wow, I wish it was more reciprocal, in that we want to highlight more that we are.
You had to tell them, I'm sorry, we don't take pictures with the beast.
I felt so bad because I was like, what? And I couldn't even find the photo. I'm like, I can't even find this photo. Like, I don't want him to think it was so insignificant that we didn't even document it, But I do think there is a shift. I definitely know with Allegheny East and with our current president, who is really big, Dr. Kinlock, who's really big on social justice. Even that, what you mentioned earlier about that call with Al Sharpton, that the Northeastern individual, our pastors are encouraged to participate in that. So I think we're trying to move to a space where we're encouraging it and saying it's okay. Like, because some people need to just hear from other Adventist ministers that we can do this. It's okay. And so being invited to these things and encouraged to attend these things, which is something that has not been done in the past, as you talked about the marches and various things that we were asked not to participate in. I see a shift happening.
Well, see, even if the shift happens behaviorally, what has to happen is you have to break the spiritual, emotional taboo that exists. For example, in the 1960s, in the 50s and 60s, actually, we began to realize, it's not right to separate people according to their race. But the taboo still exists, so that even now, if you see a white person with a black person, you think that somebody compromised something, because that shouldn't exist.
Mm.
And that's because the taboo is still there. We haven't really confronted the the toxicity of white superiority, and in its place, we now are substituting black superiority. That you hear people saying, "Well, melanin makes us more spiritual and wiser than other people." I mean, we create these myths of superiority, and because we go to church on Sabbath, and because we have quote a prophet, and I think it's a poor church that only gets one prophet, but that's just one thing, That's, we have a prophet. That means that we are something that every other church is not. Therefore, we will work with you and treat you as though you are partners, but only if you allow us to put an asterisk next to your name.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, how do we change that? How do we? And it goes back to the original thing. How do we break the taboo that tells our members that the Bible wants you to not regard these people as being equal, which would allow you to partner with them because you can't walk together because you don't agree?
Well, perhaps over time, as they hear the gospel of Jesus Christ being preached, they might be convicted by the Holy Spirit to understand the heart of God and the intentions of God to reach all mankind. Because a lot of us sit in pews in churches for decades and we're not transformed. We're just there. So, it does take some spiritual education, and you have to break some false ideologies. And so at my church, I just try to right in the corner where I am. Like I just recently heard about a block party that's happening right across from my church. And I was like, hey, church, every year we complain about all of our parking spots being taken and the street being shut down and the inconveniences. How about we come to church early this one day and, gather for an hour, baptize 3 people, and have some pizza and go volunteer for the block party and be around the people and mingle with the people and get to know the people, just to connect with them so that when we're doing something, we can invite them. And so, they're like, well, you know what? We've never done this before. Well, let's do it. So, ordered a bunch of t-shirts, and we're going to be a part of the community on that particular day. And we're going to inconvenience ourselves so that we can collaborate and be a part of this block party. So it doesn't take a lot of work. It just takes intentionality and a willingness to try something different.
Right. And I think seeing is believing. I think the more people try these things that we've been told not to do, and we see the fruit, because I've heard that so many times in, interviewing pastors about various evangelistic efforts where sometimes the church members are like, we've never done this before. And then they just go ahead and do it. And then the members see the impact. They're like, oh, wow, I never would have believed that this could be a thing until I saw it happen. So that's why, not just waiting for everybody to come along or everyone to buy in, but moving forward and letting the Holy Spirit and the fruit show what can happen when we do this. That has transformed a lot of people's thinking in terms of, God not blessing it or God not being pleased with us doing this thing. They can see firsthand how partnering with the community, and then the way they feel when they're doing it.
Yes.
Many of them have to admit, wow, like I really never participated in something like this, but this was one of the most, I felt most like a Christian when I participated in this activity.
Well, what do you say to an Adventist preacher? Because I just spoke to one not long ago who says, because GP just made mention that as people become familiar with God through the gospel, that they begin to understand the heart of God. What do you say to an Adventist pastor? And this is a thoroughly Adventist pastor. He's a leader. He said, our job is not to preach simply the gospel. Our job is to preach that people come out of Babylon and that they not receive, we're the 3 angels message. Our job is one of separation, coming out of, and which takes us back to that sense of being separate and distinct. And that we are called to that ministry. We're not simply called. And somebody said just last week, as we were talking, somebody made a note saying, any other church can do that. Our job isn't to do that. That's all the other churches do that. Our job is to call people out of Babylon and into truth. What do you say to people when they say that to you?
I would respond with Christ's method alone. So yes, you can make the invitation, But before you make the invitation, you got to mingle with them and have a relationship with them. And they have to know, like, and trust you. So don't just be a weirdo. Connect with people and be authentic.
Weirdo. No, I agree. I feel like we try to lead with, I need to pull you out, as opposed to, let me see who you are. Let me meet you as a person. Let me, let's some common ground before.
I mean, look, I have, I don't know if you would call it a privilege, but I don't have legacy. I didn't grow up Adventist. I have no family member in the church. I am the only Taliaferro in my family that's an Adventist, and that it wasn't always that way, but it is now. And so I don't have that real concern. But I remember when we joined the church, the strength of our identity was in how different we could be. You eat that? Yeah, we don't eat that. What day you go to church Sunday? We go on another day. You wear them earrings? We don't wear earrings or makeup. We don't dance, and we don't go to movies. And we were, our religion was found not in cans, but in cannots. We cannot do this. We cannot do that. And so are you saying, Tasha, that we're shifting now? And if we're shifting, many people put value in the fact that they can be different. Like GP said, when God says you're my peculiar people, they take that one step further. We ain't peculiar. We downright weird. And we celebrated our weirdness.
Yeah. I definitely think we're shifting. I think our badge of honor is no longer how far from the common man we can be, but how far can we show the love of Christ to others. I feel like we're now trying to, I know it sounds bad, Christianize Adventism, meaning we're not just our fundamental beliefs. We are people, followers of Christ, who want to live a life that shows that we are followers of Christ. So we're more concerned about that than our policies and our belief systems. That's not to say we don't value them or we don't see any light in them, but that is not our complete identity. We are Christians first. Because what's going to be appealing, honestly, guys, what's going to be appealing about our beliefs and if we're not showing the love of Christ first? It doesn't work. It's not an attractive organization to be a part of. And I think for so long we led with that. And that's why so many who have left the church have left, because they came in with the legalism and the can'ts and all of that, to the point where they didn't feel like they had a true understanding of what it was to be a Christian. And I think we need to flip that.
Yeah.
GP, theologically, does God prefer Seventh-day Adventists over other denominations?
No.
Hold on for a second.
Let's be clear.
Yeah, Alex Bryant. Yeah.
Listen, Taliaferro.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Taliaferro. God has a people. All right. God has a people.
Doesn't he have a people and then a remnant people?
God has a people. And his people, some of his people are not yet in the fold yet. And some of us who are in the fold think we're God's people. We might not be God's people.
Is Adventism the fold?
I knew that was coming.
So when you say they're not in the fold yet, what fold are they getting ready to get? What fold are you talking about?
Adventists are not the only people who keep the commandments, Tally.
Okay. Okay. So
no, and it's so weird to even just be able to say that so clearly now, because growing up, I really had that understanding. I really thought that unless you were an Adventist, you were not going to heaven. It seems so, like, as an adult, it seems so weird to say that out loud, because it sounds so preposterous. But I remember being really nervous about my family members, my grandfather and my grandmother, who were not Adventists, and being fearful that if something happened to them, like if they were to die and they become Adventists, I would never see them again. I mean,
Tasha would bring ice cubes to the funeral, throw them in the coffin.
I'll be so frustrated.
You're going to need these where you're going.
I'm like, oh, why won't they? Why didn't they follow? Why didn't they accept? You're like, and then I was like, you know what? My grandparents were some of the most loving people. They were Christians. They love God. They love others.
Shit, but they weren't in the fold.
And I was so happy when I grew spiritually to understand that was such a warped way of thinking. And that's not how it really is.
So if that is the case, then let me ask a question. Both of you, Tasha, you're at Germantown. I know a little bit about that church. GP, you're down in Virginia. What organizations do you partner with? Now your pastor is in a very unique position, Tasha. Because his father-in-law pastors the largest, most influential Baptist church in the state of Pennsylvania. Period.
Oh, not just Philadelphia.
Not just Philadelphia, in the state of Pennsylvania. And I mean, with the possible exception of Mount Ararat and Pittsburgh, but because Enon is in Philadelphia, it's much more influential because of the size of the city. So what organizations do you know that your church partners with, or should partner with? Let me put it that way.
And I feel bad that I don't know all of the organizations, but I do know that we partner with organizations because we even bring in the leaders to come and share about the organization. And then I know we were partnering with an organization, particularly for young boys who did not have fathers. And they wanted the men in the church, to mentor the young men.
Is this 100 Black Men?
It might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah. So I thought that was a great partnership. There's also, and one of the things about Germantown is we have a lot of members who work with community organizations. So it gives us exposure to things that we can be a part of. And I know that's one thing that Pastor Johnson is very passionate about, is if your organization is working with something and we can help, bring it to the church. And I know we're committed, pretty regularly with highlighting some of these organizations and partnering with them in real ways, with our finance, with our support, with our service. And I think for us as a community, it almost is shocking us into conformity, if you will. It's like, why not support something like this when you see, the family members of someone who lost someone due to gun violence in the city of Philadelphia, and we're bringing them to the church and giving them gifts and supporting them and telling them we're going to be there for you. And we're all in the congregation like emotional, but yet at the same time proud that our church is supporting families. And I don't know the organization that, helps shares with us those families who are impacted. But to me,
I think yours is G. Lamar Stewart.
Okay.
Who preach for I saw him preaching for you guys.
And
He's
so
Baptist pastor.
Great. And so for me, it made me feel like, wow, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like, have we gotten it wrong all along? Like, to me, seeing that impact of, I'm not trying to convert you to my church. I'm seeing a need and addressing and providing comfort to a family who needs it right now.
Which organizations down in Virginia now, and Southern Adventists tend to be even a little more conservative.
Yeah.
So
in my case, it's the reverse. So I personally am involved with the Mayor's Book Club and Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy and CareNet Peninsula and Emerging United Leaders, Hampton Roads Community Action Program. And I'm in the process of allowing my church to be onboarded to these same organizations. And so my first 2.5 years, I've been involved immensely with these organizations. And starting this fall and this summer, we're introducing partners to our church because we're working towards our fall compassion project that we're doing. And I'm using it as a reset to change the way we operate. And so organizationally, there's a lot going on in my church, but year 2026 will be the year of influence where we regularly are engaged in our community. And this summer, we're voting a repurposing of our facility into a multi-purpose space so that
Wow.
we can do greater ministry. So
Yeah.
pews out, chairs in, new flooring, so that we can do more than what we're doing right now. So
Wow.
it's taken 3 years to get here, but we are changing the trajectory of our impact in our local community.
Yeah, that's it right there, GP. That's where it's at.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing that develop.
Sure.
You know,
If you want to give some money to the project, I can give you the link.
I do not, but I look forward to.
I support you with my prayers.
But you know, in closing, I mean, when I was at West, I remember looking at a list of the boards and commissions that I was on as a pastor, and I was on 9 of them, 9 separate. You know, the Victims Association. I was on that board. Mantua Neighbors, the Police District Advisory Council. I mean, 9 of them. And I said to my elders, you know, I said, listen, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. But I said, but the church needs to be represented on all of these.
Right.
So I said, let me know which ones you guys would you be willing to represent the church on? You know, and
you got crickets. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And that's because we are not accustomed to that level of association. And now West Church is better. I mean, they're moving in that direction well, but there's still the theological thing that says that, wait a minute, we got to be careful because we might become infected with Sunday, you know, or you know, being in the same room with pork might create, you know, some level of porcine infection. And so we have to break that taboo for people so that they realize that when a hungry man reaches out, he doesn't care what label is on the hand or the sleeve that is extended to help relieve his hunger.
Amen. I love that. That contamination fear. I mean, it amazes me because, you know, many of us, like I said, go to work. I mean, not me, of course, but many of us go to work every day with individuals who don't believe what we believe.
Yes, you do, Tasha.
It applies to you.
Be not deceived.
Well, you know what? Touche. But we're able to operate in those spaces without necessarily feeling like, you know, we're going to walk away from our faith because we're around people for the majority of our week. You know, so it doesn't translate to me that we feel like in ministry we can't be around others who may not believe what we do for fear of, you know, losing our faith because we're with someone who doesn't believe the same. Yeah. So it's just like making the main thing, as we hear all the time. And ministry is what we're trying to accomplish and improving our communities. Let's do it. Let's partner. Let's see how we can work together to make change.
Gotcha.
That's my 2 cents. But thank you. So we're in the world, but out of the world. Is it a dilemma?
Well, it is if you don't confront it. I mean, we're in it, not of it, right, but not out of it.
Okay.
And that is, you know, learning to live. One of the things that I took from Emil Peeler's sermon that I thought was just extraordinarily stated, learning to live within the tension.
Yep.
You know, it's like the Apostle Paul says, you know, he says, you know, I'm to the Greek, I became as Greek, to the Jew, I became as Jew. Learn to live with the tension, you know. The Apostle John says, beloved, now are we the sons of God, but it doesn't yet appear. You learn to live with the tension and to not have things statically defined black and white. And that is something that I got from that sermon that, you know, I really think that we could expand upon in our own lives and practice.
Divine design in the mind. Okay.
That was I kept that one too.
Yeah. But no, thanks for taking us through that topic today, Talia. I think it's one that will stretch us and help us, as you said, live in that tension a little bit. So thank you.
Journey.
All right. And of course, thank all of you who are watching. We look forward to reading your comments and how you feel about the subject. Please put in the chat some of the organizations maybe that your church is partnering with, or some you would like them to partner with, and how you feel we can do better in this regard.
And on behalf of our Playing Hooky members, Novella, and Marlena, and Keenan, and
We'll see you
and the others, we thank you for joining us.
We do, and have a great week.
Take care.
Peace.